guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled "Woman Stops Me at Walmart on My Day Off, and I Throw Up on Her." So I've worked at Walmart for 3 years, and I never experienced any of the rude customers or general craziness associated with Walmart. Well, it's my day off and I happened to get sick to my stomach. I had already thrown up twice, so my mom decided to take me to Walmart to get the things that I need to get better. She insisted that I just stay in bed while she gets the things, but she often got the wrong things, so I decided to go to get them myself. Big mistake. When we arrived, we started to get our things and tried to get out as fast as possible since I was starting to feel really bad. When we were on our way to the checkout, this woman stops us. I recognized her since she was there the day before when I was working. She started to ask me about stuff, and I have to tell her that I wasn't working today. She huffed and said, "You can still help me out. All I want to know is where the dog food is." I point at the direction of the dog food and tried to get out of there because my stomach was starting to hurt. She stops me again and says, "I already looked over there, and I couldn't find it. Just come show me." My mom tells that lady that I'm sick and that I don't have time to go with her, and just find somebody else to help her. She tells my mom to shut up and looks back at me and says, "It'll just be a few minutes, come on and help me find it." My mom tells this woman to back off and leave me alone, but the woman is insistent that I help her. Just then it feels like somebody had grabbed my stomach, and started squeezing it, and I started to throw up. Unfortunately for the lady, I had been facing her and threw up all over her pants and shoes. She screamed, but it wasn't stopping and I kept going. She had backed up after I had started, and was screaming for a manager. My mom was holding me while I tried to stop, but the pain in my stomach was too much and I just kept going. One of the cashiers saw what was going on and immediately radioed for a manager and custodian. One of the managers comes over and sees the mess, and the lady is crying to him about how I puked all over her. My mom tells him that I was trying to leave, but the lady wouldn't let me. The manager takes her to the back and the cashier, whom I'm friends with, takes me outside and sits with me while my mom goes to pay for the stuff. I honestly didn't mean to throw up on her, but as soon as it started coming up, I couldn't stop it. I feel bad for the custodian who has to clean up my throw up, and I feel bad for the lady since I hate throwing up and can only imagine how it feels to have someone throw up on you. I'm also dreading the day I have to go back, since I know that this story is going speed like wildfire. Surprisingly enough, the lady ended up admitting that it was her fault since she kept me there when I clearly needed to get out of there. Everything is okay now, but man, was that the most embarrassing moment of my life. The next story is titled "Don't Mess with My Grandma, Karen." The denotations of the people involved are pretty obvious, so I am not going to list them. Summary. Grandma with Alzheimer's puts Karen in her place. My grandmother has Alzheimer's, so she often doesn't know where she is or who is with her. I know for a fact that she has no idea who I am. Therefore I make an effort to call her Grandma multiple times in any sitting or activity we participate in. Recently, I noticed she needed her hair and nails done as the color in both those areas was fading or chipped. So I made an appointment with a family member who owns a beauty salon and took her there. Normally, customers or those waiting for someone sit in the front area and rarely accompany a person they came with inside the actual salon floor. So, I understand why assumptions were made, but still, don't mess with my grandmother. I was on the salon floor with my grandmother, sitting in a seat in front of her, while my cousin colored her hair. I was there to make sure to keep her calm and engaged while her hair and nails were being done. She was telling me the same story she had told me 10 times in the last 10 minutes. Bless her heart, when I felt someone behind me. Now we were in the farthest corner of the room, not near a bathroom or wash station, so there was really no reason someone should be behind me. My grandmother stops talking and looks behind me. Grandma, chipper as ever, "Hi. Are you another grandchild?" Karen, "No, I am not. And why are you not working? There is a line over there." Me, upon realizing she is talking to me, say over my shoulder, "I don't work here." Karen, "Now I can believe that. You are on the floor, which means you work here." She's talking to me condescendingly and I do not take that sort of tone well. Neither does my grandmother. In a moment of clarity, I watch that bright chipper smile fall and a glimpse of my brainiac grandmother peek through. I shoot a warning glance at my cousin who is pursing her lips to keep from laughing prematurely. Grandma. Well, by your own logic, my dear, you must be a worker. Go get me a new Coke, would you? That's a good honey bunch. Karen starts sputtering and my grandma laughs. The chipper look returns to her face and she says, "Hi, are you one of my grandchildren?" As Karen stomps off in her loud high heels, my grandma turns and says, loudly, "I guess not. My grandchildren are not idiots." Oh my god, I love my grandma. I don't know where Karen went, I wasn't really paying attention after that. The next story is titled Karen Declares War on My Parents for Cutting a Tree Down on Their Own Property. I, 25M, have been living away from home ever since graduating from college. My parents both retired recently and last summer they decided to use some of the money they'd saved up to finally build their dream retirement home in New Orleans, where they've been living for the past 10 years. I come from a very tight-knit family, so I still talk to my parents every week, and they were so excited when they said they'd already picked out the location where they wanted the house built. It was an empty lot in a nice neighborhood where a house had been demolished not long before due to age, and the previous owner, who was pretty wealthy and owned numerous properties around the city, decided that the lot was worth more without the house on it. Anyway, my parents snapped it up as soon as it came on the market, but not long after construction began, they realized that they were building their dream house right next door to the lair of a wild Karen. The trouble started when my parents had to cut down a large oak tree that sat in the front of the lot. It was a real beauty, too, one of those big southern live oaks, and although they didn't want to, they knew they had to remove it because it was in the way. No one likes to cut down a big, beautiful tree, and believe me, if there was a way to avoid doing it without impeding the construction, my parents would have taken it. So, they called a tree removal service, and the tree was soon gone. Well, a few days after the tree had been cut down, my dad was on the property talking to some of the construction guys and making sure everything was going smoothly. He was going back to his car when he saw a woman in her late 50s walk out of the house next door and head to her mailbox. My dad, let's call him John, is a pretty chill and laid-back guy who likes to be on good terms with everyone, so he walked over and introduced himself. "Hi," he said, holding out his hand. "My name's John and my wife and I are going to be your neighbors once our house is finished. I just wanted to come over and say hi and introduce myself. It's nice to meet you. What's your name?" Karen glanced at the extended hand, then looked up at my dad and glared at him. "My name is none of your business," she snapped. "I'm not going to shake your hand because of COVID, and even if there was no COVID, I still wouldn't shake your hand because you people ruined my life when you cut down my tree. I still can't believe how selfish you are. You should both be ashamed of yourselves." My dad was taken aback by this and pointed out that Karen already had a nice big oak tree in her backyard, but Karen ignored him and stalked back inside her house. She never explained why she thought she was the owner of the tree that had been cut down, not once, and whenever my parents asked about it, she refused to answer. I guess it's just one of those things we'll never know, like what really happened to the lost Roanoke colony or the fate of D.B. Cooper. My parents met some of their other neighbors later that day, including a nice elderly couple who lived in the other house next door, Karen's, and when my dad told them what happened, the neighbors said Karen was like that to everyone and no one in the neighborhood liked her. They also said that Karen had been nasty to them for a long time, and they were in the process of selling their house because they couldn't stand living next door to her anymore. Karen soon began living up to her reputation. For months, whenever my parents would visit the house to see how the construction was coming along, she'd find something to complain or confront them about. One time she said the construction workers were being too loud and threatened to call the police, even though it was the middle of the day. Another time she said that the construction company was using illegal immigrants as cheap labor and threatened to call ICE and have the whole project shut down. My dad mentioned this to the owner of the company, and the owner sent Karen a formal letter threatening a lawsuit if she tried. I don't know if there were any actual grounds for a lawsuit, but the threat must have worked because ICE never showed up. Oh, and then there was the time she tried to have my parents' car towed for illegal parking when they parked by the curb of their still unfinished house. The first my parents knew about this was when the tow truck showed up, but the driver took one look at where my parents' car was parked and told Karen he'd send her a bill for wasting his time if she called him again. I could go on. Karen did everything she could think of try and interfere. She was absolutely relentless in her crusade to avenge a tree she never even owned. Happily, the house was completed despite her best efforts and my parents finally moved in not long after the holidays. My mom told me later that she caught Karen watching them bitterly from her window as they were taking some of their boxes inside. She was concerned that Karen might keep going and try something else. But I guess Karen was too busy wallowing in self-pity over her failure or something because things were actually quiet for a while. But a few weeks ago, things changed. New Orleans has had some really bad weather lately due to the winter storms that are battering much of the southern US right now, and one night, one of those storms was so powerful that it knocked over the tree in Karen's backyard. It missed falling onto her house, but it didn't miss falling onto her shiny new Jaguar and crushing it like a beer can. According to my folks, Karen didn't discover what happened until the following morning. When she came outside and saw the pile of scrap metal that used to be her car, she threw back her head and let out a primal scream like something out of The Exorcist. She had to pay a tree removal service to get rid of the tree, and then she had to pay for a tow truck to get rid of the car too, and then she had to get a rental car too. Karen put her property up for sale and moved out not long afterward. Everyone in the neighborhood was glad to see her go, and my parents enjoyed watching her drive off into the sunset from the front porch of their amazing new house. The next story is titled "The Pizza Place Printed My Phone Number on Their Coupons." So, this happened back in 2007 or 2008. Not sure if this belongs here, it looks like it might fit. I lived in a small town and my house had really bad cell phone coverage at the time, so I still had a landline for the house, complete with an answering machine. One day I come home to find several phone calls for a regional pizza restaurant on my answering machine. I quickly find that they had printed these mass junkmail flyers with some pretty decent discounts, and my phone number. It was a pretty simple mistake. My phone number was XXXXXX-4442 and theirs was 4422. I called the pizza place and told them what happened. The manager was nice, and told me he had nothing to do with it, that the corporate office made them up, but he would call them and try to work out a fix. That night I probably got 80 phone calls. I changed the outgoing message on my answering machine to give callers the correct number. More than half the calls I got still left me their pizza order. Who calls for pizza and expects to leave their order on an answering machine? That town has more dumb people than I thought possible, and I already had a low opinion to begin with. This went on for almost 2 weeks. I kept calling the restaurant, and the manager kept telling me they can't get a hold of anyone who can do anything. Finally, I'd had enough when a snowstorm blows through town and the pizza orders go up. Snowy days seem to be busy for food delivery. I start taking orders, writing them down as accurately as I can, and forwarding them to the pizza place, through the number listed on their website for home office. At the time, if you called that number after hours, the robot that answered gave you a list of extensions, and eventually I found the one for VP Marketing. I wanted President, but meh, close enough. Once I found the extension, I forwarded every call for them I got, like this. "Hello, this is Airborne Chaos again. I have an order for 1 extra large, Goliath pizza, 1 order of cheese sticks, and a bottle of Sprite to be delivered to John Dow at 244 High Street, Smalltown. His credit card number is, insert credit card details here, and his phone number is, phone number. I really hope you can help me get these people their food. This seems to be pretty inefficient. Thanks." I made at least 20 calls like that. I don't remember the exact number, but it wasn't as many as I thought it would be when I made the plan. Nevertheless, the next morning I got a call from the company president. They paid my phone bill for a year, minus long distance, to buy my phone number from me. Honestly, they didn't need to pay my phone bill for a year, just cover the cost of changing the number. But they offered. The next story is titled "I Don't Work Here, I Work in That, Points Ambulance." XXL. Years ago, in the early 2000s, I was working 24-hour shifts on an ambulance. Since we were working these extended shifts, we had a kitchen and whatnot at our station. So if we didn't have a call right at the beginning of our shift, after our rig and equipment checks, the first thing we do in the morning is our grocery shopping for the day. Now, just to make sure it's clear that there's no possible way for us to be mistaken for the uniform of the store employees, we wore blue button-down shirts, had a patch on one arm that said, State of, Redacted, and our certification level, either EMT Basic or Paramedic, and on the other arm had a patch with our company logo on it. We had dark blue pants with about 500,000 pockets, radios on our belts, etc. The grocery store employees' uniforms were either a white or tan shirt and black pants, and usually some type of apron, with the store logo. The last bit of info I should add is that the area we worked in was one of the richest neighborhoods in our metro area, and usually the cheapest car you saw in the parking lot was a Lexus. So now that the stage is set, comes our adventure. My partner and I were at the store doing our shopping for the day, and it was a relatively quiet Sunday morning. Other than us, there were only a couple of other shoppers in the store, and several employees were plainly visible doing their morning duties. I'm busy trying to decide if I want link or patty sausages for my breakfast, when I hear the classic, ahem. I'm pretty engrossed, because let's be honest, it's an important decision, and now I'm weighing bacon into the mix too, and I really don't pay too much attention. Then I hear it again, accompanies by finger snapping. I'm broken out of my sizzling reverie by this, and think maybe I'm blocking someone's access to the cooler? Turn around and there's this lady in her 60s, dressed up way too fancy for a early Sunday morning grocery run, and she's glaring daggers at me. I'm sorry ma'am, am I blocking your way? No, can't remember the exact item she's looking for. I'm sorry ma'am, I'm not an employee here, I work for, redacted, the ambulance company. However, I've seen a couple of employees a few aisles over, I'm sure they'll be happy to help. Young man, you will do your job. I need you to find, item, for me. Ma'am, again, I'm really sorry, but I do not work here. I work on the ambulance you had to walk past to come in. We always park right up front in case we get a call. Now, I apologize, but I need to finish my shopping so we can get back to the station. I reach into the cooler, grab a package of bacon, because bacon always wins in the end, and plop it into my basket, turn and start to leave. And this crazy old bat decides to shove her cart in my way to try to block me from walking away from her. Young man, my husband is, name that apparently she thought I should recognize, and my shopping here pays your wages. Do your job and help me. Now. Between the crash of her cart hitting the cooler and her escalating tone of voice, we've, thankfully, caught the attention of one of the store employees. They come around the corner, and turns out it's the store manager. I recognize her because we've run calls at this store before. Mrs. Name. Please calm down, and I'll gladly help you. She's getting wound up to start yelling again, and about that time, my radio starts going off. When we're assigned to a call, it starts beeping very loudly. I silence it, turn to the store manager, and apologize to her for running off and leaving my groceries in the cart, but we're getting a call and I have to go. She's very understanding, and as I'm walking off, I hear the old bat asking, yelling at the store manager, where does he think he's going? I need, item. And her reply, presumably, to his ambulance to respond to that call, since that's his job. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.